All right, and there we go. Hoping those Instagram lives are working. Okay, I think we got it. If you're tuning in on the Instagram account, let me know if the live is working well. I'm trying to do it a little bit differently. So drop me a comment and let me know if that live is working well for you. But let's get into it. All right, guys, we are going to jump into the podcast right away. And then after, we are going to get into some Q&A. So make sure you stick around. But for right now, guys, we are going to be talking today about being the example that you needed in your career. So we're going to get going right away. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about being the example that you needed. So what do I mean when I say that? Now, I talk to a lot of athletes on a lot of different career paths, and one thing I hear quite often is that, they want to achieve goals that they haven't seen anyone else achieve before. So like if you're a young fighter listening to this as an example, a lot of young athletes in the combat sports space or any other space aren't around a lot of people that have done the thing before, right? It's like the chances are there aren't a bunch of UFC champions training at your gym. There might be, and if there are, that's awesome. But if there's not, then how do you pursue that same career without having that example? Now, a lot of people use this as a reason not to do all the right things, right? They say they don't know how to get there. They don't know what the path is. And it allows them to kind of fall off track. But the approach I always like to take for myself, and the approach that I believe is going to help a lot of you as well, is to be the example that you would need from someone else, right? So what I mean when I say that is think about the way you approach your life. Think about the way you approach your life right now. Even if you are an 0-0 amateur and your goal is to make it all the way to the top of the professional ranks, think about the way you approach your life right now. Are you doing the things required to get there? Now, obviously, it's a long ways away, but are you doing the things required to get there? And you might be saying, as you listen to that, but I don't know how to get there because I haven't seen it before. I haven't been around it before. I don't know anyone who's done it. But you do know some of the things. You know what I mean? You do know some of the things. You do understand some of what it takes to be a high-level professional athlete. And you can understand those things by watching high-level professional athletes. Listen to their interviews. Watch any of the training of theirs that you can watch. Watch their social medias and see how they approach their day-to-day. And are you trying to model yourself after that? Now, I'm going to preface that by saying, or I guess preface is the wrong word if I've already said it, but I'm going to say this anyway, that you shouldn't be trying to be exactly like them. Like if you're watching a certain athlete that you like, you shouldn't try to just copy exactly what they do because every person is different. But what you should do is take pieces from it. Take pieces from it that you can apply to your own life, you can apply to your own training, you can apply to your own approach to the way you do things. Right. So I'm going to give an example of myself as a coach and, ways that I take this same approach with my own career. So as I started working with fighters, I didn't have anybody around me that, had done that before, or had been in this industry, had any kind of success with it or anything like that. But I knew that those people existed. So I started looking them up on YouTube. I started looking them up, online, on Instagram, whatever it was. And the guy that I found that, just leveled above everybody else was Phil Daru. And if you don't know who he is, you should probably look him up. The dude's very, very smart, got a lot of really good videos, content overall. And so I started watching literally everything that Phil Daru did. And I'd watch his videos, I'd listen to his podcasts, I'd follow his Instagram account, everything. And I didn't take that and be like, okay, this is what Phil Daru does. This is what I have to do too. But what I looked at is I was like, okay, how does he seem to approach his day? And obviously I'm looking from a distance, so I can't give you the exact, ins and outs of how he spends his day. But I was like, number one is he's very, very disciplined with his training, like his own training. He is at the gym every day. He is in good shape. He looks the part. So I knew for myself, I need to start taking that more seriously. I need to, show up to the gym more myself. I need to, put the work in that my athletes can look at as an example instead of, being the fat guy on the side telling the professional athletes how to train. Nobody's going to respect that guy. So when I started seeing that, I was like, okay, like a guy who's doing what I want to do is more disciplined with his training than I am. So I started fixing that. And piece by piece, I started fixing that. Now, the next things I started noticing, when he is, talking with athletes, the way he's explaining things, the way he's breaking things down. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about how he broke things down so that I could improve the way that I broke things down to my athletes. And then when I watch his videos and he's going through exercises or going through, the way he sets sessions up or anything like that, I'm not just copy pasting and doing my own thing. But now that I fixed a lot of the lifestyle stuff for myself that I wasn't doing, I started watching those videos of how he, sets his sessions up and being like, okay, like I like this. I maybe don't like that as much, or maybe I don't understand that to the degree that he does. So I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to take this, this, and this, and I'm going to see how I can apply that to my people. So the idea was, even though I didn't have that example around me, I found that example online. And I focused on taking as much from that example that I found online to apply to my own career, to apply to my own life. Even from the way he runs his business, that was the other thing, is I was like, okay, this dude is doing what I want to do. And he's on social media every single day. He is constantly pumping out videos on every different platform. It's like, if I want to build a business in this field, I'm going to try being on social media every single day, pumping out shit on every single platform, doing everything I possibly can. And over the last few years, I've been very, very, very consistent with that. Minimum one post a day on 3 different platforms every single day for multiple years. And the business is starting to grow. Am I where he's at? Probably not. But I'm a hell of a lot further because I started looking at any example that I could find. And then I started becoming that example, right? I remember listening to him on a podcast at one point, and he said, it's like, if you want to be a coach, you need to be an example that your athletes can look up to. And I was talking about this with one of my athletes yesterday. I was like, my goal, this was an athlete that's been out of town for a few months. And he came back and he was talking about like, man, just in the last 6 months, it's so cool to see like what you're doing compared to what you were doing 6 months ago. And like the way you're breaking things down, the way you're doing things. It's like, dude, it's just awesome to see. And I was like, man, honestly, my goal is to always be an example that you guys can look up to. I'm not going to necessarily be as strong, fast, powerful, etc., because, you guys are training for fights, but I want you to be able to look at me and be like, that's a leader, right? And that's one of the things that motivates me every day when I get up. I get up at the same time every day. I go to the gym at the same time every day. I don't sleep in. I don't eat a bunch of junk food. I don't treat my body like shit. Yes, obviously for my own health, but also because when I have athletes watching me, I want them to understand this is a guy that can help me, improve the way I approach my training and the way I approach my life, because look at what he's doing. He's taking good care of himself. He's presenting himself well. He's building a killer business. Like, he's a leader that I can follow and that can help me reach the heights that I want to reach. And by simply changing up the mentality on how I'm approaching it, the success in the business itself and the success in literally every other area has skyrocketed. So what I want you guys to take from this is, if you're in a position where maybe, you don't have that example around you, you don't have that, higher level athlete that can show you the ropes, start looking for them elsewhere. Start looking for them online. Start seeing, listen to them interview, listen to them talk, and then start noticing the things that they're doing that you're not. Right. So from the coaching standpoint, like I said, from Phil DeRue, one of the big things was the way I was approaching my day didn't line up with the way he was approaching his. He was very disciplined, up early in the morning every single day, took care of his mindset every single day, was training hard every single day, was in really good shape, presented himself well physically. So I was like, okay, I need to start doing that better. And then the second part of that was social media, right? I wasn't really all that consistent with it, but he was putting shit out every single day, all the time. And I was like, well, damn, like if this guy's doing what I want to do and that's how he's doing it, I can do that. And so I started working on it, right? And this is what you guys need to look for as well. If it's a UFC fighter you like to follow, if it's interviews, if it's their social media accounts, whatever it might be, start seeing what kind of things they do, how they approach their day, what kind of things they don't do, right? If they're cutting out certain foods or they're, not going out drinking, they're not, partying, doing whatever, maybe that's something that you got to start looking at for yourself too, right? And like I said, and I'm going to finish off with that, every person is going to be a little bit different. So, if somebody says, yeah, I don't go out partying ever, and you're like, man, I need to like let off some steam every once in a while. Well, there are guys that make it to the top that let off some steam every once in a while, but you just got to manage how much you're doing it, right? So figure out what works for you. And finally, as you start finding those examples, the thing that you need to be able to resonate with is becoming that example, right? So the way I look at that is I'm like, if I was in the room with, a Phil DeRue as an example, would he be looking at me and being like, okay, this dude has what it takes to do what I do, right? Or then even the other way that I look at it for myself as a coach, which would be a little different for you, but kind of similar, is the way I live my lifestyle. If my athletes knew the ins and outs of exactly how I spend my day, are they looking at me being like, God, what a lazy piece of shit? Or are they looking at me being like, damn, that dude's impressive, right? Because if I'm on the that's impressive side, now I become the leader that they can follow. I become the leader that can help them achieve the goals that they have for their careers. But if I'm on the side that, my athletes are watching me and they're like, nah, the fucking guy's lazy as shit, then if I'm lazy as shit and I'm telling them, hey, you got to work harder, you got to show up to the gym, you can't miss training sessions, why would they listen to me, right? But if I'm showing up at 100% every day, it gives them a lot more reason to trust that when I say, hey, this needs to get done this way, that it actually needs to get done that way, and that's going to be beneficial for them. So the main thing, the final thing, and that's how we're going to wrap it up, is guys, find the examples that you need online, wherever else it might be, and then become the example that you would have needed. And every single day, ask yourself, if I was with that guy or that girl who I consider the example for my career, how would they view me? Would they view me as, someone who's doing the right things, who's like approaching their career the right way? Or would they view me as somebody who like, oh, you want to be in the UFC? Good one. And if you can find that proper balance and you can put yourself in the situation that you're actually showing up as the guy that they see and they know has what it takes to be where they're at, and you can look back at yourself and know that you're showing up that way every single day, you're going to get way further in your career simply by shifting the way you approach your lifestyle. So guys, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for taking the time to tune in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode.